Welcome to the All Hoops podcast. I'm your host, Steve Inman, joined as always by my star producer and co-host, Chris Brito. The NBA season is fully underway, so we'll talk the biggest surprises of the first week of the NBA season. Before we get started, Chris, my friend, how are you?
Hey, Stevie, happy to have the Knicks back on TV again. It's been a few months, and I like what I'm seeing so far. And I feel like that's where we could probably start this podcast. How good does Jalen Brunson look on the Knicks right now?
I mean, Chris, he looks incredible. He's not turning the ball over. Yeah, I think him passing the ball is causing other guys to pass the ball more too. So you're seeing a lot more ball movement than you've ever seen in the past. Obviously, they haven't played too many quality teams yet other than Memphis to start the year, but I'm curious to see how the ball movement progresses. Does it continue the way it has when they start playing really good opponents?
Yeah, you're right. And I feel like um, Brunson has added an element of like just competency to the Knicks offense. Like I think many times last year and even the year before that, the Knicks were always stuck in the pattern of like, okay, let's rely on Randall to score. Let's rely on Randall to play make. Not everyone can be a playmaking power point forward like LeBron James. And so I think that's where Julius Randle can't uh overextend himself in a situation where like he's just not gonna be that guy. And that's okay. He doesn't need to be that guy. And so the addition of Jalen Brunson, at least so far, has been so great because you can have Randall be the secondary playmaker, and that's good enough. And we've already seen some of those, like, early crisp passing on his behalf. He's turning all the ball over less, he's shooting better. And so with a lesser workload, we're already seeing his efficiency go up. And we're even seeing unexpected contributions from other guys on the team. I mean, that's unrelated to Jalen Brunson, but I feel like it's a promising thing to see that even a guy like Cam Reddish is shooting lights out right now for the team. There's a lot of reasons to be hopeful, and it all starts with Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, of course, who is building up his trade stock once again.
Yeah, I still think Randall is the key to this team. We've seen him at his best where he's leading the Knicks to a fourth seed, and we've seen him at his worst where he's thumbs downing the fans. The fans are booing him back. The efficiency just isn't there. And so far, we've seen two not so great years and one excellent year. And this fourth year in New York, off to an amazing start. He's averaging about 20 over a little over 21 a game, about 10 rebounds a game on, as you said, great efficient numbers, over 51% from the floor. If he can do that and have another all-star season, the Knicks are going to the playoffs. And not just that, the Garden's gonna be rocking all year. And, we're not really asking for a championship at this point. We're asking for excitement. We're asking to be competitive. We're asking to be basically one of the better 16 teams in the league. And I think right now, if Julius Randle can keep this up and continue his efficiency without turning the ball over, they can do that.
I'm with you on that one, and it's only been 3 games. 3 games, yes.
3 games.
And then they play the Hornets on Wednesday night, and I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. You mentioned that we didn't face any top quality opponents yet, but the Grizzlies look like they're going to be the best team in the NBA this year, and we played them pretty tough, and we almost beat them. I
I
think
don't know about the best team in the NBA. Do you?
top four in the West.
That's a
Top
big
three.
difference between best team in the NBA and top four in the
I said
West.
they're looking like one of the best teams in the NBA.
Okay. Well, yes, they are a very good team, and the Knicks took them to the brink, and it was very nice to see. And hopefully, the Knicks can continue that. The one downside so far has been RJ Barrett has just gotten off to a terrible start. We kind of thought he was going to be in for a breakout year. It's very early. It's as early as it gets. But Chris, 34% from the floor, 18% from three. Is this a slow start, or are you concerned?
I'm not concerned yet. It's only like, with the same gusto that I can promote how well the Knicks are playing, I can also say like it's only been 3 games, and the same logic applies to RJ Barrett. He's historically been a slow starter to begin his seasons anyway. And so I'm looking for him to improve as the season goes along. I'm not worried yet.
Yeah, I think I'm a little worried because you saw in the second half of last year, I kind of thought he would take off from there. And the shots he's getting, he's just not finishing at the rim. It's the same kind of mistakes he was making to start the year last year. I still think he's in for a big year, Chris, but obviously you'd like to see an efficient game sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on, though. That's enough with the Knicks. They look good. We're happy with them so far. Another team to be happy with is the New Orleans Pelicans. Chris, this is really what I envisioned for this team for 2 years now. They have Zion back. They look incredible offensively. They are running with pace. They are dominating on the offensive glass. Can Zion and Jonas play together? Offensively, we knew the answer would be yes. It's definitely yes. Exclamation point, yes. And the offensive rebounding is just killing teams. The Nets had no chance with the two of them on the boards the other day. Jonas is averaging about 6 offensive rebounds a game. I know that's not going to last, but at the same time, they have a true identity this early in the season. And for a team trying to integrate a young star into the group, it's encouraging what you're seeing.
Oh, definitely. And my favorite part about what the Pelicans are doing is that like they've slowly built up this team like the last few years, and they've built it around Zion and maybe potentially a future without Zion. And it's just great to see it all come together for them. I think they've had a few years where they're like unsure what the future might look like. Griffin's job was in jeopardy at some point, but like he's done a great job of like making the Cavs into would you say a top 4 team in the West?
Yeah, I think the Pelicans are a top 4 team in the West right now. I fully believe that. I think again, the identity where they're going to just push the pace and try to make you beat them offensively while also being somewhat competent defensively. I think that is a recipe for success. I talked about it with you before the show where I said it reminds me a lot of the 7 seconds or less in Phoenix where they're pushing the ball, but at the same time, they're still doing enough defensively where you could still see them being a legit contender.
And yeah, I mean, listen, with the Pelicans all predicated on one thing, Zion's health. He already missed a game with a hip contusion because of a hard fall, which could be a freak accident. Like that could happen at any game or any point in the season. But it's just something to monitor as we go along in the season, how many games Zion misses and really how the team seems to cope in his absence. Like the team made a great run into the playoffs. They really challenged Phoenix in the Western playoffs last year. And this is a team that has the right stuff and they're well coached as well.
Yeah, no, Willie Green's a very good coach. I think they have depth pretty much everywhere. They have a really quality player in their starting lineup, and then they have a really interesting, either good young player or a good depth piece behind that person. So David Griffin, I think, has just done an outstanding job. And as you said, it's flipped so quickly where we kind of thought he would be the first GM fired last year. We're not sure where Zion is. They're trying to get him to lose weight. He's not around the team. And now look how things have changed so quickly. And not much has changed.
Are you saying not much has changed?
Yeah, I'm saying a lot, like not much.
Oh, a lot has changed. Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I think we could like depending on what happens this season, if the Pelicans are a top 4 Western team, like David Griffin deserves all the consideration for executive of the year. I mean, you don't get credit obviously for the things you've done in the past, but like we're seeing his vision really come to fruition this year if it all pans out. But
absolutely. And again, as you said, if he plays 65 games this year, I could see them being a top 4 seed out west, and good for them. It's been a really tough road for them where they couldn't really build a team around Anthony Davis. They trade Anthony Davis for a bunch of stuff. They lose Lonzo for very little. Zion's out, and now all of a sudden it looks like they have a legit contender. And we questioned the CJ McCollum move last year. We're like, why is a 10 seed trying to move to 8? And now look where they are now. So it's a great job by David Griffin in
And
that group, and hopefully they can keep it going.
look at where Lonzo Ball is today.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Chris. Meanwhile, the new Brooklyn Nets, things have not gotten off to a great start there. Ben Simmons has missed a year and a half, and he looks it. He has not been good at all offensively. He just doesn't look in basketball shape. Is this something where maybe this is just who Ben Simmons is at this stage of his career, or you think he just needs some reps?
You need more reps, man. Like it's still too early. If we're like close to halfway through the season and we don't see anything from Simmons, like okay, sure, but it's still so early, and you're adjusting to a new team still, and there's only so much like practice and like you know non-game simulations that you can do that can really like really build the chemistry on this team, and like clearly they're just building that, and I think that's okay, and I wouldn't panic yet. So it's still too early for me.
Right. This team could win 50 games and everything could be okay, or this team could fire Steve Nash before Christmas. So it's so hard to tell how this thing will play out. I think this is the most unpredictable group in the NBA right now. We've said that last year too. But
Yeah.
how do you see this playing out?
I think they'll get it together. I think what may happen is that they'll trade for someone, or they'll sign someone, a big man or something, or they'll just score more than everyone else, and like then it won't be an issue. But they're clearly being beaten down low, which is obviously an issue. But it's hard to have two non-shooters on the floor, and I think that's the problem that you run in with Simmons. If he's not like the de facto center, then it's going to be really tough to play him in crunch
And
time.
Claxton, their center, has played really well. Like he's really the only one on the team who can protect the rim right now. And so I know everyone says, "Oh, just put Simmons at center," but you're taking out a guy who's actually a rim protector
Yeah,
and rebound the ball. And
yeah.
then I'm not really. I know Simmons is a great defender, but is he really going to be guarding 7-footers and being able to block shots at the rim? I'm not so sure about that. I know we kind of give him that kind of credit, but to me, he's more 1 through 4 instead of a defensive minded anchor. So I'm curious to see how this all plays out, but they got to get it together fast. And you just think of all the shooting they have on their team with Durant and Irving and Joe Harris and Seth Curry. You'd think that's the group that could kind of make up for having two guys on the court at a time who don't shoot. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean that's really the biggest question. Like as the season goes along for the Nets, like will will those two guys be healthy, and whether the chemistry will Ben Simmons like really will get there. And I think only time will tell, obviously, but from the early looks of it, it seems to be a work in progress. Like I would have expected Ben Simmons to be further along, yeah, only because you miss so much basketball time that you'd be in perfect shape for this. But I guess it's a reminder that we're all human. And so like even someone like as talented as Ben Simmons needs time to adjust. And so I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt for now.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I got him on the fantasy team for the second
Of
straight year
course.
somehow. He just slipped into my hands in the 6th round, and I had to do something. But I'm hoping for him. And we both heard him on the JJ Redick podcast, and he just sounded like a very genuine person. And it's really a look from him that we had not seen before. So you and I are both kind of rooting for him to find some success, even though he plays for the wrong New York team. But that's that. And let's get to final thoughts right after this. All right, Chris, final thoughts time here. Obviously, you and I have a Jazz bet under 31.5 wins. And can they just chill out? What are they doing? They're 3-1. Sexton's playing great. Laurie's playing great. Clarkson is playing out of his mind right now. And Danny Ainge is going to have to make some trades quick if they're going to be in this Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes.
Well, this is like the perfect scenario for Danny Ainge, not the contrary. I'll tell you why. Because all these guys are just boosting their value so much. Like I've never seen that before, where like a team that's supposed to be a lottery team is not only playing great, but all of them are sort of showcasing their talents, and like sort of like the next person that goes in, we're like, oh wow, this team played hard, even though they were supposed to be a tanking team. Like, I think it's great for them, but uh it's not looking great for our bet. But I'm pretty confident Danny Ainge will do something. Like,
Yeah, I do too, but they might have to do it sooner than they thought. It might not be a February thing. It might need to be a November thing. So we'll see how it all plays out. But I could see them being the first team to really start selling off more pieces. Conley, uh, Clarkson. I think Sexton and Laurie are probably keepers for them, but the other guys I think could go and go fast. Maybe even Beasley. So we'll see. They have a lot of vets and they have a lot of guys that other teams would want. So I'm curious to see
oh, and
what
they beat, didn't they also beat Minnesota the other night, which is
they beat
crazy.
Minnesota. They beat New Orleans. It's weird. That's New Orleans' only loss so far.
Your Western Conference future champs.
I don't know about that. I mean, we'll see. I still think the Warriors and the Clippers are the teams to beat out West, but there's a lot of really good, young, fun competition. So the West is going to be awesome. I think it's.
Have you have you seen any Clippers games yet?
I saw the first one where Kawhi came off the bench and basically he didn't get into the game until almost halftime, and it's he played in 20 minutes and he looked great, but and he already has missed what 2 games of their 5, so it's a little bizarre to me how little he's playing. I know we always talk it's regular season, doesn't matter, they don't care, but can you care a little bit? Like what's happening here? You got to get him in some kind of basketball shape sooner rather than later.
There's a balance to it, and I feel like Kawhi like goes the other side of that spectrum, like by a long shot. I mean, I'm just not impressed with the way like. Well, who knows? It might actually be health related. I don't know, but by all indications, it seems to be like player rest or whatever it is.
I think it's his player rest. I mean, we're not doctors, we don't know for sure. We're not in those talks, but
Wait, you're not a doctor, Steve?
although I do play one on this podcast on occasion, but this is a situation where I know the ultimate goal is to win a championship. And to do that, he probably needs to start ramping up 3 months out, 4 months out, right? Maybe less. So in that perspective, it makes sense. But you got season ticket holders, you got people paying money. They're not cheap ticket. Like this is it's expensive to go. And when all of a sudden you find out an hour before, oh, Kawhi is just resting tonight. That's tough for the fans. I know it happens. It's part of the game, but it's happening so often now that if I were a Clipper fan, I'd be frustrated.
Oh yeah, and you can't even build a culture like, okay, like, oh, remember when Kawhi played this game? Oh wait, he didn't play, he was resting. Like, how many memories can you say Kawhi has given you in like the last 3 or 4 years that he's been on the
Not
team?
as a Clipper fan.
You could argue Paul George has. Paul George has led them to the Western Conference Finals. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And look, it's early. If all of a sudden you told me he was playing every day in December, but doing this every third game he sits out now, that's fine. That's more than fine. But if this is going to continue for most of the season, I would be a little frustrated if I was a fan of that team.
Oh yeah, definitely.
All right, Chris. Last thing you mentioned before, a rumor about Terry Rozier to the Lakers. I don't see this happening at all because the Lakers only have 2 assets left. It's the 2 first-round picks. They have to attach Russell Westbrook to any deal of any player making any kind of money at all. I don't see the Hornets really taking on Westbrook's giant deal, and I don't really see the Lakers giving up their 2 first-round picks for Terry Rozier. So I think we're going to see a lot of rumors of solid players going to the Lakers, and I don't think any of them are real.
Well, here's my only justification that I could see if you're New Orleans doing that and getting that pick. And I would just ask for one pick, really. Um, I think Russell is, if I'm not mistaken, I feel like his brand is Jordan.
Yes.
And so having a Jordan athlete work for a Jordan organization, I think could make sense.
No, that makes sense. But
Like,
Michael Jordan is one of the cheaper owners in the sport, and for
right,
them to go from Terry making 30 million to taking on Russell Westbrook's 47.
right, but he's an expiring, you know.
Sure, but it's going to put them over the cap this year. And that's why I don't think it's realistic unless Charlotte is throwing in a bunch of junk. Let's say it's Terry and like Gordon Hayward's money, and then
Yeah,
why would the Lakers do that? So like
yeah,
it seems overly complicated to the point where
it's
I
not
would
worth
not
it.
expect anything to happen with the Lakers anytime soon. Whereas I think Terry could move and help a contender somewhere. I don't think it's gonna be LA. And they're also not contenders.
They need a lot of help. But
For
we're
sure.
going to talk about their start. It'll be a story for another day. Um, but yeah, bud, I'm excited to watch the Knicks, and we'll see where they are the next time we have our podcast.
Absolutely. Can't wait for that. We will be back next week. That's going to do it for us here on the All Hoops podcast. Thank you for watching on YouTube and listening on Apple, Spotify, wherever else you get your podcast. And we'll be back next week.
Bye, everyone.